When the words animated film come to mind, what do you picture? For me, it's nostalgia. What a tricky and troublesome emotion to navigate. It can be such a warm, welcoming hug and yet also be the most crushing sensation you've ever felt. These days, it feels like a constant, numbing throb. Present experiences feel so muted and dulled, replaced by a yearning for golden moments of childhood. What better to relinquish us from the chains of existential dread than the beauty of animation? Animated films have always thrived on their ability to ideate a new form of reality, where youth and innocence are never lost. The same awe-inspiring worlds and characters packed with richness and detail that reel in the attention of kids are twice as effective at exploiting the feeling of nostalgia in adults. Historically, Pixar has been really freaking good at making them. 9 years after Inside Out introduced us to joy, sadness, anger, disgust, and fear, 5 core emotions who inhabit the personhood of Riley, a young girl who deals with the troubles of moving to a new home across the country, the newly released sequel Inside Out 2 moves us forward a few years, as Riley learns that her best friends and hockey teammates in this new town will not be attending the same high school as her. We also get introduced to 5 new core emotions: envy, embarrassment, ennui, nostalgia, and anxiety. It's now become pretty mainstream to trash blockbuster sequels, but Pixar has largely done a fantastic job with theirs. Toy Story 2 was the second film they ever released, and some even say it's better than the first, which was able to literally bring imagination to life. But the sequel was able to achieve a new level of maturity. Somehow it was able to incorporate a darker side of toys, collecting, and incorporate themes from the real world that everyone is familiar with. And within Woody's discovery of his true identity was something very honest about the human condition. It told this wonderfully original story about identity, betrayal, and healing, and without this sequel we would have never gotten this. And then there was Monsters University, which might not be better or even as good as the original, but it elucidates the origin and foundation of Mike Wazowski and Sully's relationship, showing the ugly beginnings of 2 best friends whose bond is mostly unquestioned in Monsters, Inc. By the time Incredibles 2 came around, people weren't rallying against the sequel, saying instead that it came over a decade late. And once again, Pixar tore down the facade of what the first film built, turning Mr. Incredible from hero to stay-at-home dad, and creating a story about something raw and imperfect, but realistic and relatable. Suddenly, you look back and realize we're not the only ones who grew up. Pixar has been growing up with us this whole time. At age 4, Pixar became aware of its own existence. Age 14, Pixar started to form deeper friendships and learn about college. Age 19, Pixar came to understand that love demands sacrifice. But at age 25, something didn't quite work. For the first 2.5 decades of its life, Pixar, like many of us, learned that life is often more complicated than we want it to be. And just like in the real world, Pixar learned again and again that it is often more fruitful to embrace that fact rather than try to deny it. Perhaps that is why its most recent original stories have dealt so heavily with the concept of identity, trying so hard to find acceptance within this ugliness of adolescence that now feels more familiar. To be quite frank, these stories have felt weighed down by their attachments to the real world, their fantasy elements only weakly dragging along. It led them to Inside Out 2, where the repetitiveness and comfort and satisfaction with imitating these past successes caused everything to sputter to a stop. The smaller, playful representations of childhood gained new counterparts, an ensuing struggle for control, a resolution that prioritized companionship and acceptance. Inside Out 2 didn't just try to copy Toy Story 2, it tried to copy Toy Story 1.
Behold, my super high-tech Riley protection system.
In the opening scene, Joy tells everyone that they've been getting rid of all of the traumatic memories that Riley has been storing up. Her action here is portrayed in such a naive undertone.
Expressway to, we're not gonna think about that right now. Woo!
It feels so obvious that what she's doing is wrong and will be proven wrong later on. The message and overall through line of the entire film already feels spoiled. Sure, there are some other problems where the new space that they create here feels visually underwhelming, and it felt ridiculous to me that their idea of tension building was watching this trophy thing sink into a pile of balls. But nothing compares to the fact that Inside Out 2 was a film that already gave away its own ending. It's not really even a story anymore. It's like an AP English essay that's already made up its mind on its thesis, which is some takeaway that you're supposed to have from your childhood. That being said, Inside Out 2 is now Pixar's highest grossing film of all time. So maybe parents and children and people of all ages actually love this film. Maybe I'm wrong to be pessimistic about anything that Pixar puts out in the future because of what they might take away from all of this. Maybe I'm blinded by my own nostalgia. Maybe for me, and for Pixar, this is just part of growing up.